The Riddlewood Series. Book 1, The Map That Whistled. Chapter 1, The Girl Who Listened Differently. Wren Thistlewick had a way of hearing things no one else did. Not loud things like thunder or teachers or tap shoes on wooden floors, but the shy things. The sigh of a leaf dropping its last drop of green. The hum of a bookshelf hoping someone would notice its forgotten corner. The quiver of a puddle pretending to be a mirror. Her grandmother said it was the old magic, the kind that didn't sparkle or explode or make anyone levitate. Real magic? Grandma Thistlewick had whispered once. Stirring tea that always tasted like a memory. It's what stays quiet until someone is kind enough to hear it. Wren, who had messy copper hair and glasses bigger than most of her face, lived in a cottage at the edge of the whispering thicket. A forest where trees shared riddles with whoever dared listen long enough. Most days, she preferred books and notebooks and the small company of her owl-shaped backpack, which hooted politely whenever she found a good idea. But today wasn't like most days. It started with a stumble in the local library. More specifically, a trip over a shelf that didn't exist yesterday. The shelf was carved from a single trunk of ashwood and smelled faintly of thunderstorms. It sat in the back corner, unlabeled, as if it had appeared simply because someone needed it to. On it rested only one thing, a dusty blue book titled Things That Were Misplaced on Purpose. Wren blinked. "That's not ominous," she murmured, and reached for it. It didn't open like a normal book. Instead, as soon as her fingers touched the cover, the book shivered, and with a faint whistle, a rolled-up parchment spilled from between its pages and landed at her feet. A map, but unlike any she'd seen before. There were no roads, no names, just swirling ink and tiny shapes. A teacup with wings, a broom mid-curtsy, a cloud wearing spectacles. And in the bottom corner, in looping script, was a single line. Follow what's forgotten, fix what doesn't fit, and never ignore a whisper. The map quivered once more, then promptly wriggled out of her hand, bounced toward the door, and rolled to a halt against her shoe, waiting. It wanted her to follow. And despite the fact that the librarian was snoring behind the desk, despite the fact that she hadn't brought snacks or a proper adventure cloak, despite everything that made sense, Wren did, because something deep inside her, some quiet note of listening, some flicker of wild hope, whispered, "This is the start." Chapter 2, The Owl in the Biscuit Tin. The map did not lead Wren where she expected. Not to a hidden cave or a glowing portal or even an old abandoned shop with curtains that twitched suspiciously. It led her to her grandmother's pantry. More specifically, to the biscuit tin with the words, "Definitely not magical," painted on the lid in glittery red paint. Wren stared at the tin, then at the map, which bounced slightly with impatience. "Really?" she said. "That's where my first quest begins?" The map tapped the tin twice with its corner. Wren hesitated, then lifted the lid. Inside, nestled among half-eaten ginger snaps and one suspiciously humming sugar puff, sat a rather grumpy-looking owl wearing spectacles. "Oh, you again," said the owl. Wren blinked. "I've never met you." Osric blinked back. "I meant you in the general sense. You curious types who open things you shouldn't." He fluffed his feathers, sending crumbs scattering. "My name is Osric, and I was trying to nap. But apparently, your map thinks it's time I resume my post as unwilling guide to magical mishaps and occasionally enlightening sidekick." Wren stared. Osric sighed and continued, "There's a problem in the thicket. One of the forgotten spells has leaked. Escaped, wandered off, got into the biscuits. Take your pick. It's loose, and if we don't find it, it'll start altering reality in inconvenient ways, like turning everyone's names into furniture." Wren felt a chill, the kind that settles right behind your knees. She picked up the map, which now showed a flickering ink splotch deep in the thicket, pulsing like a heartbeat. "What kind of spell is it?" she asked. Osric squinted. "Looks like a glimmer spell, used to brighten dull moments. If it's unstable, it may make everything too bright. Emotional confetti, wild laughter, possibly unicorns with unreasonable opinions." Wren smiled, despite herself. "That sounds kind of wonderful." You say that now, Osric muttered. Wait until your grandfather's slippers start hosting stand-up comedy. Wren tucked the map carefully into her satchel. Then let's go find it. The owl hopped onto her shoulder, grumbling. One day, just one day, I'd like to be ignored. As they stepped into the early dusk outside, the whispering thicket shifted. The trees rustled. The wind rearranged itself into riddles. And deep inside the woods, something sparkled. A glimmer spell, waking up too fast. Chapter 3. The thicket with too much glitter. The whispering thicket was never quiet in the traditional sense. It rustled, chuckled, sighed, and occasionally snorted. The trees told riddles in ancient bark tongue, and the mushrooms hummed when walked upon. But today, the thicket was unusually lively and unervingly sparkly. Wren stepped through a cluster of giggling vines and froze. The clearing ahead was covered in confetti. Not ordinary party confetti, but magical bursts of color that blinked in midair and whispered compliments to nearby rocks. One pebble blushed. Osric squinted. Yep, glimmer spells loose. I hate sparkly disasters. Wren moved slowly, scanning the clearing. In the center sat a small squirrel wearing a tiara made of dandelion fluff. It was reading poetry aloud to a group of enchanted snails, who clapped their shells politely after every line. I think, Wren murmured. The spell's making everything perform. Osric fluttered to a nearby branch. It's over-glimmering, trying to make everything feel significant. This is dangerous. These snails aren't emotionally equipped for slam verse. Wren stepped closer and felt a sudden pull in her chest, like the spell had noticed her. The map in her satchel twitched. A glowing wisp floated past. It shimmered with laughter, then dove into a tree, which promptly began humming the tune to Twinkle Twinkle Little Spellbook. That's it, Osric said. We need to contain it. Wren thought quickly. Can I talk to it? You can try, said the owl. But glimmer spells are like toddlers with glitter. They spread until someone listens. Wren closed her eyes, listened. Then she spoke gently. Hello. I see you. I hear you. You don't need to make everything shine to be special. The wisp paused mid-swoop, flickered. I know you were forgotten, Wren continued, but I'm not here to fix you, just to remember you properly. The clearing quieted. The squirrel removed its tiara. The snail sighed in relief. The glimmer spell hovered before Wren, dimming to a soft glow. Then, with a quiet chime, it slipped into the map, which folded once, satisfied. Osric blinked. Well, you are good at this. Wren smiled. One whisper at a time. Chapter 4. The Watcher Beneath the Ferns. The glimmer spell had settled. The clearing was calm now. The confetti had vanished in a faint puff of emotion, and the snails were back to modestly munching moss with only mild literary ambition. Wren tucked the now glowing map into her satchel and exhaled a small breath of wonder. Osric, who was nibbling on a leftover ginger snap from the biscuit tin, muttered, I suppose we can call that a tidy success. No one turned into a kazoo. That's progress. But the thicket wasn't done. As Wren turned to head home, the wind shifted. Not loud, not angry, just different. Leaves whispered syllables too crisp to be natural. Ferns rustled without reason. She paused. Something's listening. Osric's eyes widened behind his spectacles. Something old, he said, his voice softer now. And something curious. From behind a knotted tree stump, half covered in moss and regret, emerged a figure. Not human, not animal. It looked like a coat rack made of vines, with eyes that blinked slowly, once every century perhaps, and a voice like damp paper. The listener has awakened. The map has chosen. The forest will remember. Wren blinked. Hello. The figure tilted its leafy head. You have quieted the first chaos. That earns you the right to hear the next whisper. It reached out a tendril and pressed a leaf into Wren's hand. The leaf shimmered and curled, revealing a tiny ink shape. The next glitch. A bubble of mischief drifting near the Riddlewood schoolyard, where toys had started growing opinions. Osric groaned. Oh no, I remember this one. A toy box decided to unionize. Demanded holidays. Wren tucked the leaf beside the map. I'm ready, she said. The figure gave a slow, approving nod, then melted back into the ferns like dew in sunlight. Back at home, Grandma Thistlewick placed a warm cinnamon bun beside Wren and whispered, Careful, child. Listening deeply changes the world. But it also changes you. Wren nodded. She wasn't the same girl who tripped over a book in the library yesterday. She was the girl who heard the forgotten things. And tomorrow, she would help a teddy bear negotiate a new bedtime. Chapter 5. The day she became a story. The next morning, Wren awoke to find the map waiting on her pillow. It didn't whistle this time. It hummed, soft and warm, like a kettle that knew a secret. She tucked it beneath her cloak and tiptoed to the kitchen, where Grandma Thistlewick was stirring potion tea with a spoon that sometimes gave unsolicited advice. You're not the same girl who opened a dusty book, Grandma said, without turning around. You're the one who listens on purpose now. Wren sipped the tea, which tasted like memory and maybe cinnamon, and nodded. Outside, the thicket shimmered. Not loudly, not showily, just enough to let her know it had noticed. Somewhere within, a riddle unraveled and folded itself into a new truth. And Wren, she had been changed. She spent the day gathering little things. A bundle of pine spark leaves, 3 buttons made of forgetfulness, and a ribbon that had once tied the moon to a child's dream. By nightfall, she'd sewn them into a pouch. The first piece of her adventurer's kit. Not for fighting, for fixing, for remembering. That evening, as stars blinked above and fireflies rehearsed their choreography, Osric flapped onto the windowsill. There's been a commotion near the school, he said. A jumble of talking toys forming a republic. Teddy bears issuing decrees. Wren smiled. Let's go listen. And with the map tucked close, the owl on her shoulder, and her heart ready to mend whatever whimsy waited, Wren stepped into the moonlit path. The thicket whispered. She whispered back. And so, the map that whistled closed, not with a grand explosion or a trumpet fanfare, but with a girl who dared to listen, and the first page of the Riddlewood series quietly turned.